All right, guys, welcome back to Someday Soon. Thank you so much for joining us today. Before we get into the episode today, just want to take a quick second to thank the guys at Spatchcock Funk for offering the studio space for us to record today. Also, huge shout out to the guys at Selly Hockey for sending over this hat. It was an incredible time interviewing both of those guys. All those episodes are available on the channel, but don't go anywhere, because if you're interested in drones, the business around drones, the creativity around drones, today is going to be the episode for you. We are joined by Todd Torrance today. Todd, thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure.
You're in this amazing position today. You have this incredible company that you've been working at and, putting a lot of effort into for a long time, and you're starting to see the fruits of that labor come through. But before we get into all that, I really want to take it back to, you growing up. You're from the area, and as you mentioned, you were active duty military as well. When you were growing up, why did you decide to join the military, and what was was it a thought that this could be a career for you at the time, or was it just, means to an end at the time?
I think it was a healthy mix of those two things. I mean, I grew up in a relatively middle-class family on the south side of Syracuse, working in a pizza shop, a little locally owned pizza shop, not really seeing much of a future in Syracuse. So I ended up dropping out of my junior year of high school, got my GED, and then ultimately was like, I think the only way out of here is military service. And I started on my paperwork, talking to the recruiter, all that stuff in like June of 2001, right before the towers went down.
Right.
So I had, done the whole thing, taken the ASVAB, got the, picked the job where I was going to wind up and all that stuff. And I was just waiting to go to basic. And then, for those of us old enough to remember, 9/11 happened. And it was like, initially I thought I was joining a peacetime army, right? I'll go do my time. I'll get some skills. I'll, learn some things, get some much needed discipline in my life, and move on from there. And then it became obviously very apparent that that wasn't going to be the case. And I certainly had the opportunity, there's one last piece of paper you sign right before you get on the airplane to leave for basic, that locks the contract in. So I just felt that I was doing what I was supposed to be doing. So the first couple of years, I had a really great experience with a very, very, very tight-knit group of guys who I deployed to Afghanistan with, and thought I was going to be a lifer. Either I'm going to retire or, the Army's going to have to kick me out when I age out, basically. All of my stateside time was at Fort Drum with the 10th Mountain Division. Deployed to Afghanistan with 287. When we came back from that deployment, the larger structure of the Army was changing without going down the rabbit hole. I got reassigned within the 10th Mountain Division to a relatively new unit, or new type of unit, where they were mixing regular straight leg infantry guys, which I was, and cavalry guys. So mounted patrols versus walk everywhere and whatever. So it was like the two doctrines didn't really mix, and it was supposed to be this new type of reconnaissance and target acquisition unit. And it didn't really pan out that way. And it kind of became, once we started training together and figured out that I kind of say it jokingly, but the cavalry's creed is death before dismount. We're not getting out of our trucks. We're just going to unload on whatever's shooting at us with the 50 cal and pick up the pieces later. Mm-hmm. And all of our training as infantrymen is you close with and destroy the enemy. So our first response is to get out of the trucks and maneuver on, whatever that enemy happens to be, take care of business, and then deal with it. So the two, it's like oil and water, right? The two doctrines didn't really mix in a way that was conducive to the unit's mission. So ultimately what they decided to do was keep all the cavalry guys in a cavalry platoon, the infantry guys in an infantry platoon, and we just kind of did our own missions, our own types of missions that ultimately supported the goal of the greater unit. While I was deployed with that unit to Iraq 05-06, we had started the day by going and sitting in an observation post at this overpass to monitor a funeral procession for two different religious sects of the Iraqi people. Someone had killed someone else's higher up or something like that. So we're watching this funeral procession to make sure there's no retaliation, basically provide crowd control, sort of. Our lieutenant, in all of his infinite wisdom, at one point during the day kind of looks back from it's like the front passenger seat, and he's like, man, I got a really bad feeling about today. And I mean, there's certain things, we're all a bunch of superstitious guys, right? Military. There's certain things you don't say, right? And I got a bad feeling about today is pretty high up on the list. And you could have heard a pin drop in that truck. It was like we all just stared at him like, "Sir, we're cooked now, right?" Whatever. Fast forward a couple hours, we're done with that OP mission. We get a call to go pick up some high-ranking official and like his Iraqi interpreter. During that course of transit from the OP to the green zone, a weird, again, without getting down a rabbit hole, a weird set of circumstances happened. We went under an overpass that we typically go around to follow the lead truck who had done that, because you never leave a unit alone. And when we came out the other side, we encountered this older model white four-door sedan that was probably closer than I am sitting to you right now, an individual in the front seat who had bad intentions. And when we kind of came alongside to pass, I basically made eye contact with him, and he pushed a button, blew the car up. We, no fatalities, thank God, but, everybody in our vehicle walked away from it. But we were all just absolutely rocked. I mean, the explosion was massive. The armor on the Humvee did its job, thank goodness for solid American engineering. I ended up getting medevaced. The rest of the guys in the truck, I think, wound up in another truck or got transported. They were medically cleared to continue duty, but I got medevaced, a bunch of treatment, no major injuries, but I was sidelined for about 2 months. And subsequent to how the chain of command dealt with me and my injury following that incident, it became abundantly clear to me that it was time for me to move on to bigger and better things. So I left active duty and came back to civilian world, and I could go on for ages.
Yeah. No, that's incredible. Thank you so much for sharing that, and thank you for your service as well.
Absolutely.
I mean, that is, these are the things that people don't hear about with, the military, of course, especially young people being recruited, and it's a great thing for people to go and fight for the country and all this, and we need these things, and to be thankful for these people, but also sharing the stories is super important as well. And
sure.
I do a lot of work with the Green Beret Foundation, and recently we did a bunch of promotional content for this film called Sheepdog, which if anyone hasn't seen, you should definitely check it out. And it's a combat movie, but there's no combat in the film, and it's all just about transitioning back to civilian life after the military. And they did a really special thing with the premiere of this movie where they had it in DC at the Naval Museum, and they had all these, everyone from all of the branches of the military and different support groups around that come out. And so there's a lot of, former military active members that were there to share their story. And a lot of them were, really moved by that, because there isn't a lot of resources out there for people coming back. We send all these people out, and then when they get home, it's kind of like, all right, best of luck, figure it out. And we could go on for hours about all the thing that could change there. But what was transitioning back to civilian life for you at that time?
Like you said, and again, this is almost, we're talking about 20 years ago at this point. When I left the service, I think the end of this year will basically be by the 20th anniversary of me leaving active service. There was like a out processing where you're finishing up your contract, and they give you a pretty in-depth physical to identify any problems, et cetera, et cetera. And they connect you with like the VA to treat those issues or continue treating those issues once you've left service. But beyond that, there weren't really many resources. We were still kind of just figuring out what PTSD really was, I think. The military is a giant machine that moves at the speed of bureaucracy. And I just don't think that the military was in a position to be fast enough to react to what we were seeing once people got home and got out. So those resources weren't available. I know there have been improvements. I can speak to resources at the VA and how those have pretty rapidly progressed and are much better at dealing with the types of injuries and trauma that we are seeing coming from Iraq and Afghanistan. So those systems are there now. Hopefully we won't need to use them in mass again, but I know that the resources are there now. But for me, when I got out, man, it was, I think pretty typical story. It was drugs and alcohol. Nothing hard. It was like, smoking a bunch of pot, looking for answers in the bottom of the bottle. It's really my faith that pulled me out of it. Getting back, I want to say getting back to a church, because that's not necessarily the right thing, but reestablishing my relationship with God and finding, coming back to the faith, finding my then girlfriend, now wife, who was extremely supportive and, basically was like, pull your head out of there and figure this stuff out. And I'll help you. I'm here for you. It was a struggle. It was a struggle. I mean, you go from to back-to-back, effectively back-to-back deployments, combat deployments. The Army spends a whole lot of money to teach you how to close with and destroy the enemy. And then when you're done, they don't unteach you how to do that, right? So it's like, what do I do? Do I go be a cop? Well, probably not, because I don't know how to de-escalate. I know how to address a threat, right? And my dad was a county sheriff for 20 some odd years. So it's like, following dad's footsteps. Nah, bad idea. Him and I had long conversations about why I shouldn't be a police officer, right? Because my instincts are so, that training and all that, there's nothing that the academy, the sheriff's academy or the police academy is going to do that can untrain that stuff. And it just wouldn't, I don't think that was the right path. For some, I'm sure it's great. I know a couple guys that got out that went back to law enforcement and did wonderfully at it. But I just don't think my experience, it would have been great. So it's like, I'll be security guard. No, that didn't, I did that for a little while. And it was just, there was no outlet for the infantry skill set in the real world. It just doesn't exist. It's like one of the only jobs in the military that doesn't transfer out. Everything else, you can be a airstrike technician, you can be a computer science guy, you can be a radio guy and go get a 6-figure job with L3 Harris as soon as you're done, and it's like, well, what'd you do? I shot things and kicked doors in. There's no civilian equivalency for that. So it really was just floundering around trying to find something. Started seeing my now wife, then girlfriend Danielle, and she was just like, you have this GI Bill benefit that you're squandering. At least go use it, do something. And I had always kind of been into photography. And the church I grew up in, I was a bit of a troublemaker. Not being able to sit still, not like trouble, but, and so the sound guy there was like, hey, come look at so I had a little bit of a tech photography-ish background. This was the same time I was doing the on-air and promotional stuff for K-Rock Galaxy Communications. I'm like, I'll go for radio. Well, I didn't know at the time, there's really no money in radio. Unless you're a drive time DJ, right, in a major market, there's no money in radio. But, I'm naive. So I go back, I'm majoring in radio. But they have a broadcast news, live television segment to that degree program. So some of my electives are falling into this other portion of this program. I was lucky enough that all of the professors that are up at OCC which now it's called Broadcast Media Communications program, are all still active and working in the industry. So it's not just a bunch of, hey, this is how it used to be, or like theoretically this is what it is. It's like Monday through Friday, they're at the school, and then Saturday and Sunday, they're going to the Carrier Dome to put on the ESPN broadcast, SU basketball, something like that, right? So these guys are all still active in the industry. Mark Ballard and Tony Vidala up there, Mark really took me under his wing. He's like, hey, come randomly, check out what I'm doing on this television production truck. And so I shadowed him as I think he might have been directing that game. And it was like the coolest thing I'd ever seen. And I was just like, how do I? And he's like, well, I think we can find somewhere for you. Cause he's also one of the local crewers. So a production company will come to him and say, hey, we're doing this game on this day. We need all of these crew positions. Help us fill them. He's got the network of people, whatever. So shortly thereafter, I started in broadcast television as a utility, which is basically pick things up and put them down. Move cases for the camera guys, run cables, things like that. Super glamorous, let me tell you what. That was my introduction to broadcast TV. With what I kind of already knew, the very, very basic knowledge I had of audio, while I was a utility, I discovered that these broadcast television networks are paying audio technicians an exorbitant amount of money to effectively just plug microphones in. Now, yes, I am oversimplifying. There's a lot more involved in that. But when you boil it down to its simplest, most ideal form, you're showing up, you're plugging a bunch of XLRs in, and if nothing breaks, your job's done for the day, right? And so I was just bugging the A2s. I'm like, hey, why do you do it this way? What's this thing? Why are you doing it? Why is it colored that way? Why is it what? And they were just finally got so sick of my incessant questions that they went to Mark and they're like, if you don't make him an A2, we're all going to quit because we're sick of answering these questions. And a lot of credit to the local A2s, who I was bugging because, that's an industry where I've seen a lot of gatekeeping with the
Absolutely.
knowledge and the the techniques because people want to protect their jobs. That whole group of guys that I was introduced to, while they may have been a little rough around the edges, were more than generous with sharing their knowledge and developing me as a young audio technician, developing me into what they needed me to be to work these jobs, right? And
Right.
that was, I didn't have bad habits. I didn't have all the answers. So it was like, yeah, they're annoyed with me asking questions, but I'm also not asking the wrong questions, so they can be like, no, this is why we do things this way, instead of me coming in and be like, I know audio, right? So it was long. And along that period of time, a lot of encouragement from Danielle and other family members, a lot of personal prayers on my own where I got away from the influence, drugs and alcohol, because there are no answers there, right? It's just you're self-medicating. You're not dealing with any of the problems. You're just covering them up. And when all that stuff wears off, the problems are still there and no
Right.
better. So, like tried, therapy thing. VA tried to throw me in group, and it's just like I know group works for some people, but it's just like it did not. Me and group did not get along. And I never really got anything back. I felt like I was wasting that. Like you could be seeing someone who this works for, right? The therapist. You could be spending your time on someone who gets something from this. I just personally wasn't getting anything from it. So a lot of different things I tried, and ultimately it was just, um, you know, God, Danielle, and bootstraps. And
Right.
I kind of got my head right. It was really like when I decided that I was going to marry this girl was kind of the end of all of the substance stuff, really.
Right. Yeah, no, that's incredible, and we'll dive deeper into that. But I want to just highlight too. Also, when I went to film school, the location sound professor, that was always his thing too. Is like, if you just want to get paid in this industry, like I'm your guy. Like, take my class, take my advanced class, and so that is a good piece of advice for people out there too. If you do want to work in a creative industry, like audio gets paid, they get paid first. They're always taken care of. But that's incredible. Yeah, you went through a lot at that time to pull yourself up, because I'm sure that is something that I have never been in a place like that, but can imagine is just, like, where do you turn kind of at some point? So you just are trying to figure it out best you can. Um, I'm also a big proponent of, I believe, anyone that's chasing something extraordinary, especially when there's kind of no set determined path out for you, like the support system behind you is so critical. And it's really hard, it's almost impossible in my mind to do something extraordinary without some sort of somebody in the the background, even if it's just a friend to call and kind of vent to at the end of the day. What is the support from your wife been like? You already kind of touched on that a little bit, and now being a father as well and having family members and friends in the background. What is the support system like behind you, and how did that lead to more successes, or how did that kind of point you in a certain direction in your life?
This would be impossible. What I'm doing now would be 100% impossible if Danielle and the kids, three young kids, 10, I'm going to screw this up. Three young kids, 10, 8, and 5. I think I got that right. Um, and then our immediate family weren't totally behind what we're doing now. God works in mysterious ways, man, because it was incremental. So it was like I was doing local stuff as a audio technician, and then as kind of my name got out there a little bit more, I'd do regional stuff. So I'd be gone for like a night. I'd go somewhere and have to spend a hotel room overnight and come home. And then it got a little bigger, and I'd go a little farther out or do, ESPN every once in a while would travel me out of state somewhere. So I'd be gone for like 2 nights or whatever. And now it's typically like travel Sunday, work Monday, travel Tuesday every single week, unless there's a larger event. And then it's like travel Thursday, work Friday, Saturday, travel Sunday to the next event, work Monday, travel home. So it's like it became larger and larger and larger. And I think that was one of the saving graces, one of the factors that allowed this to kind of grow organically, was it was like the kid, even like, newborn, toddler years, they're used to daddy being gone, right? And my wife was used to me, being gone for a day, then two. And so it's kind of just grown to the point where, yeah, like it still sucks. We just did a 9-day run on the West Coast a couple weeks ago for Mania. And then a couple months before that, I was gone for 8 days in Saudi. And it's like those still suck a lot. But because we've been doing it for as long as we have, and because it grew and just didn't, this travel stuff happen overnight, the systems are in place. Danielle's like, well, he's gone for 9 days. We'll make sure we do extra fun things with the kids to keep them occupied and not think about missing daddy or whatever. She herself runs a small side business making resin jewelry, which she absolutely kills at. So she'll she'll book some of the craft fair stuff while I'm gone, so that it all works out. Her father and her mother, so my in-laws, my mom, all live really close to us. They're super supportive. Um, they're so happy obviously for our successes, and they're totally supportive. So they'll take the kids, they'll do, grandma will do an overnight with like my son and his cousins and stuff like that. So there's always something. Everybody's always pitching in to help familially. And then there's a handful of professionals in the area who it's just like, I need another business owner to call and vent to, who, not beyond sympathizing, actually understands what I'm dealing with and stuff like that. It's just, without support, this would be an impossible venture. I would have imploded months ago.
Right.
If you don't have the right people in your corner, or the people that should be in your corner aren't down with what's going on and can't hack it, whether or not your skill set is there, whether or not you could be the best drone pilot, camera operator, director, photographer, it doesn't matter if you're the best of the best in the world. If the people who you love behind you can't deal with your career choice or where that's taking you, find something else, man, because it's misery for everybody.
Right. Yeah, and that's a big thing. I think, I've always wanted to be a filmmaker since I was a kid, and so it's one of those things that I, YouTube University growing up, of like just trying to figure out what it's like to work in the industry, or just Googling things, and you see so many people that, of course, most of the time when you're at those levels and you're relying on YouTube and Google, especially in those times where it's not as accessible as it once was for, crew members to get online and talk about their experience, you're mostly hearing about, the top of the top filmmakers or the top of the top actors. And like a lot of them have really terrible home lives, and it's a hard thing. And it's something that I think when I was growing up, I just kind of came to the conclusion of like, I might just have to live with this if this is what I want to do. And then of course, as time goes on and you learn more and you grow, there are certainly people out there that, there are great matches, right? But you have to be open and honest about those things. And, I hear friends all the time that are chasing something, and it's like, oh, just had to end this relationship because either they didn't think I was serious about what I was doing, or, maybe they thought it was going to look a different way. But, I've also found someone who's incredibly supportive of what I do, and if I got to travel and all these things. So, finding those people in life, I think, is super, super important. And, without them, we can't really do anything. So I really appreciate you taking the time to thank those people as well. You said, so you start with audio, and you start getting work, which, as we talked about, is like, that's, if you're looking for work, that's
don't tell Matt and Alex, but they pay me a bunch of money to just push record.
Yeah. Yeah. They won't know a thing. So you do, and you still do audio, yeah. But one of your big things now is you're a drone pilot, of course. And you, like, as we mentioned, you work with the WWE and ESPN and all these, massive platforms. You have also done films on the drone team as well. How did you come to really love drones and chase that avenue? Was that something that you saw as a business opportunity when you found it, or did it start as kind of a hobbyist thing and just grew for you?
So I wanted to be a helicopter pilot.
Oh,
that was what I wanted to do. That was my initial conversation when I started looking into active duty stuff. He's not in the area anymore, so I don't feel bad about speaking freely. But while he did not, in fact, lie to me, the recruiter didn't give me the whole truth about how it worked. Oh, yeah. That's something you do once you're in. That's not a lie, but it's certainly not the whole truth. So once you're in, getting into warrant officer school for helicopter pilots is like impossible, especially from the infantry field. I understood where drones were going as a technology, and I was seeing more and more media that included drones. And back in, we're talking 2012-ish. And it still was kind of up and coming. We weren't quite there yet with the tech.
Right.
Right. You could always see a drone shot and be like, oh, that's clearly a drone, because they couldn't carry big cameras. The camera technology hadn't caught up, or the flight technology hadn't. We weren't quite there, but man, we were close.
Right.
So I just kind of was like, being in broadcast and having some knowledge of like the engineering side of things, and kind of watching the progression with these drones. I'm like, we're right there. We're like, the next models are going to be the models that are off the shelf professional, where you don't have to make some crazy, like, I know it and I can see it. Danielle and I had already been married for maybe a year and a half at this point, and we were broke newlyweds. We were not eating ramen noodles by any means, but we didn't have money, right? And I was like, so I got this crazy idea. Like, I want to go spend a couple grand on this drone kit, and I'm pretty sure that I can do something with it. And she was like, yeah,
especially at this time.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm like, no, I promise I can, whatever. Okay, Todd. So, we had our back and forth about it. It was very healthy. Not like a fight or anything like that. She was asking, and that's one of my favorite things about my wife, especially when we were much earlier in my career. So I'm like, hey, I want to buy this thing, and then she would ask me all of like the CFO questions.
Yeah.
Right. Where she's like, well, what's the ROI on it, and how long is it gonna? And I would think about it, and I'd be like, yeah, maybe I don't need that.
Yeah,
right. Or conversely, it'd be like, yeah, this is a no-brainer, right? I need to buy it. So she's unofficially been my CFO for a really long time. Don't tell her that.
Yeah.
So we had a very healthy conversation about it, prayed about it, decided to pull the trigger, and I just flew my face off. It was like every day, 3-4 hours a day, I'd go up to like the local park that was up the road from where we were living, put like an empty 2-liter bottle empty 2-liter bottle in the middle of a soccer field, and just fly patterns and become intimately familiar with how this specific aircraft was going to perform, because I'm already on a broadcast television crew. Well, that kit's coming with me. And at the beginning of the day, I'm knocking on the producer's door going, hey, I'm not looking for any money, but like after I'm done with my audio stuff, I can run out and shoot scenic locators of whatever venue we happen to be at, right? Whatever big stadium. And I'm like, just throw me a courtesy credit. If you ever watch the end of a sports broadcast, or like additional video provided by wherever they got video elements from, right? And I'm like, so that's called a courtesy font or a courtesy credit. And I'm like, just give me a courtesy font. I don't want any money. And they're like, that's easy. That's like 3 seconds for our graphics operator. It goes click, 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 and your name's in there. You're done. I'm like, awesome, no problem. So I'd go shoot for an hour or two, turn the video over to tape. We'd see my product on a national broadcast, and I'd get a courtesy font. The phone would start ringing. Hey, you do drone stuff. I'm like, well, yeah. Yeah, of course. Yeah, of course I do. I'm on ESPN. Yeah, I do drone stuff. And it just kind of, again, it's more organic. Like, I didn't do any advertising. I'm terrible at social media. Like, I have the worst social media presence ever, period. I'm like, I need help. I don't, because I don't like it, because I feel like there's a I don't want to get off on too much of a tangent, but there's a performance side to it. And I don't like that. I'm not performing for anyone. This is my product. It started just kind of growing organically. Early did a lot of real estate stuff. I think most drone pilots in a small market, most of them cut their teeth in real estate. I was blessed with knowing someone who was he'd been a network camera guy for 30 plus years. Him and I would partner on larger projects. A wild set of circumstances happened. I wound up with a 2-year construction contract at Syracuse University, filming the progression of the National Veterans Resource Center. It's like $68 million. It's some huge budget construction project. Building is absolutely gorgeous, but they wanted part of the proposition that got like state and federal funding for some of this was there's this whole documentation portion of it. So I was there like every week, flying, doing ground-based photography, videography, and creating these video assets for the documentation of this thing going up. It was a relatively sizable chunk of change over the 2 years. Part of my pitch to land that job was a specific aircraft. And I'm like, I need 30% up front so that I can basically sink all that money into the aircraft that I'm telling you I want to use because I don't have it yet. And it was all fine. I got the contract, did the thing, got the drone, and subsequent to getting the drone, the guy that I would partner with on the bigger jobs called me. He's like, hey, so I just got this call from a director friend of his who's doing this show up in Rochester for Netflix. They want a drone team up there for this, and they need it. It's for Netflix, so it can't be like the Phantom 4, I think at that time was the workhorse. We need an Inspire. So because of the SU job, I had the Inspire too. So it's like we're a shoe-in, we're basically local, blah, 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 blah. We end up getting picked up for that job. It's a show called Hyperdrive where we basically chased like sport and drift cars around a real life sized Hot Wheels track.
Wow.
For 2 weeks up in Rochester on the old Kodak Eastman industrial plot.
Very
cool. It was so cool. It was just one more feather, and I never got huge. It was never like you're working every week for some major production. I just kept grinding it out and taking local stuff here for Visit Syracuse. I was doing a lot of drone work and a lot of ground-based video work for them. I mean, you can say what you want about Syracuse. You can drive, 10, 15 minutes in any direction and find some of the most beautiful landscape and scenic forest, water, mountains, grassy, whatever. There's endless stuff that you can shoot. I could go out right now and shoot for 8 hours and still, you know what I mean? It's crazy. So it's just grinding it out. There was no real pathway to it. It just kind of happened, which stinks because I would love to pass on that knowledge, right? And it was just like it just kind of happened.
Right, but that's completely fair. I think there's a part of this too where there's always the debate of like, should I kind of take a step back, kind of fall into the shadows and get really good at this thing, and then when I'm ready to come out and share my skills or share my passion, then I'm ready to go? Or do I just go at it now full force and fail, fall flat on my face, learn from it and move forward? I think either can work depending on the person and the situation. But I think even if you take your time to sit back, get really good at something, you're still inevitably going to come out and fail, or you're going to do something wrong and you're going to look back and be like, man, I really shot myself in the foot on this one. So I think there's something to be said too, just about saying, I got it. I felt good about it. You had this passion. You put in the hours to get good at it on your own accord. Aside from, this doesn't have to make me money tomorrow. It's like, this is something I'm going to take my time at, get good at, so that when the opportunity arises, you're ready to meet the challenge and kind of just figure it out along the way. Where do you stand on that whole idea of, do you think people should just, fall flat on their face as many times as possible off the beginning and just kind of figure it out? Or,
well, I'll tell you, we don't learn from our successes, right? We don't. Getting it right doesn't teach you anything. I shouldn't say teach you anything. Getting it right doesn't teach you as much as getting it wrong does, right? Getting it right teaches you that thing worked that one time. Getting it wrong teaches you that thing probably will never work that way, right? So we're just going to remove that avenue or whatever that item was from the equation. I think that, I hate to be lukewarm, but I wouldn't encourage anybody to just go buy a drone and then try to sell it. The skills, try to sell the product, right? There's a lot of safety considerations. There's a lot of regulatory stuff that you have to know. You have to be licensed by the federal government, right? There's a lot of things wrapped up on the drone side. I think if we're talking more generally, I would encourage safe failure, if that makes sense, right? You're getting into location sound recorder stuff. Yeah, go do your friend's passion project for free. That's a great place to screw up and learn, right? There's no money on the line. There's nobody's livelihoods on the line, right? It's someone's passion project. And I'm not saying that project deserves less than a professional product, but that's a great place to learn, right?
Right.
If you're working on your friend's passion project and you're like, hey, I'm not really sure how this is going to work out, you're like, you guys are learning from each other, whether it's live broadcast television, a film set, anything in this creative space where you're ultimately producing a video product. That collaboration and the ability to work as a team is probably almost more important than the core skill set. Because if you're not a team player, the whole concept of a film set, the whole concept of a live broadcast is it kind of why I found this world to be such a good fit for me, because it really is the military without guns, right? You have a team. There's a very clear chain of command. There's a very clear mission. Everybody has their assignments, their set of equipment, and you're all working towards the same goal. When you execute on the mission and you accomplish the goal, you pack your stuff up and you exfil the site. It's the same thing. And you can say that about a lot of jobs. Well, my 9 to 5, we're all working towards, yeah, you're trying to make a corporation a bunch of money, right? But you don't have that intimacy and that small team mechanic. At the end of the day, I think trial by fire in a lot of these positions is the best way to go. If you have some basic understanding of how a camera operates, you want to be a camera operator, go shoot and screw it up, right? You don't make diamonds without a whole lot of pressure.
Right.
So
Absolutely.
it's hard. I'd like to say the balance is the best way to do it. My personal experience was I know just enough to get myself in trouble. Well, I'm going to go do it now, right?
Right.
So I think it depends on the individual, but I personally learned a lot more by knowing just enough to do the job, and then like, hey, we're on the air, don't screw this up.
Right. Yeah. I think that's the true mentality of the fake it till you make it mentality. It's when you just say it, people think of like you're a fraud of whatever the thing is, and I don't think that's it at all. I think it's just, again, knowing just enough where it's like, okay, I'm not lying to somebody about what I'm doing, but it's like you kind of have to figure it out as you go, or you're never going to get better.
Chronic imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
Absolute chronic imposter syndrome. I end these WWE stuff we're doing right now. I end every show. We wrap it up. We close the thing. I look at my team and I'm like, fooled them again.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not kidding. It's constant. And when are they going to figure out that I don't actually know what I'm doing?
Yeah.
I mean, clearly I do, but it's
Right.
like that feeling of like, how am I? What?
Right. Yeah, I don't know if that feeling quite. It seems like the more people you talk to, you find the more that feeling never really leaves. You find different ways to deal with it.
I don't think so. And I would challenge anyone to, if you ever get to a point where you're like, yeah, I made it, you need to check yourself.
Right.
Like, take a good hard look in the mirror and be like, but have you though?
Yeah. Life can come crashing down pretty quick.
Real quick.
Yeah. But I really love that too. And I think I actually just recorded a solo podcast episode that I don't know if it will ever see the light of day after watching it back, but I talked a lot about failing forward, and that is a huge thing. I think people are so afraid of failure, and it's scary, right, to fail in the sense of what it can do to your confidence and your drive. But I think the real thing that we've lost is if you fail and you learn from it and you apply it, you are a step closer to where you want to be. And I think there's this weird connotation where if you fail, you're taking steps backwards from the end goal, when really every time you fail and you learn something, you're one step closer to where you want to be. So really appreciate that. Could not agree more with that. You mentioned doing stuff also, in the film world, and then also doing live broadcast drone stuff. I got to imagine with the live broadcast stuff, it's got to be a little bit more there's got to be a little bit more pressure there,
it's
of course.
Insane.
Yeah, I don't even want to imagine the pressure on that. And also the technical side of shooting a shot live on a moving drone has got to be.
You only get one shot at it, man. There's no back to one, roll camera. No, we get one shot at this.
Right.
And it's tough. As long as the tour's in the States, we're in a different arena every Monday, and they're usually sold out. And we're shooting talent that is worth millions and millions and millions of dollars to this company. And we don't do a ton of proximity work, so there's not necessarily that risk involved. But like, you only get one shot at it. If the director calls your camera, just don't screw it up.
You're on, ready to go.
You just, so I have a great team. They're all high performing, high skilled technical people, safeties. Like, my skills as a pilot mean nothing if the guys that are on the floor following the drone around, right? Because my field of view is this big when I'm in the camera, and there's, lighting and rigging and the speakers that are hung and the truss that I can't see because it's spray painted black and behind the light. Like, there's all these other things that if my team isn't performing, I'm screwed because I just ran into something and the drone crashed and hit someone. It's this collaborative, intimate environment of I'm effectively trusting these guys with my livelihood. It's their livelihood too, so they're going to do a good job. Normal film set drone stuff, normal real estate drone stuff, if something happens and your drone catastrophically fails midair, motor fails, right? Falls out of the ground or falls out of the sky to the ground, and you're shooting real estate, what are you going to do? Break the drone, right? The chances that you hit someone or something that has any value are pretty astronomically small. We're in a sold out arena. There's seating on the floor. There are wrestlers in the ring. If that drone fails, if I don't hit someone, I'm going and buying a lottery ticket. You know what I mean? Like, there's the chances of not hitting someone or something that's worth an astronomical amount of money are so infinitesimally small. It's a lot of pressure from the safety side of things. It's a lot of pressure from we only get one shot at this kind of thing. We've done a lot of rehearsals. Our director is very familiar with our capabilities. That was a process. Hey, can we do? No, we can't do that. Oh, well, what about? No, we can't do that. Well, what if? No, we can't do that. And it's just, for me, it's always been a safety issue. Like, I'll do anything. You want me to fly my drone into a wall at 40 miles an hour? That's fine. Write me a check for the drone, right? As long as we can do it safely, I'll do whatever you want. But the moment there's a safety concern that exceeds what I have established as an acceptable threshold, I don't care who you are, how much money you have, we're not doing it. It's really gotten to a point where our director has a very good understanding of what he wants, what we can do, and vice versa. We understand what his expectations are from us. And anything outside of that norm, we've gotten to the point where we have a relatively brief conversation. I want to do this. I want the shot to look like this. And I'm like, yep, no problem. Or it's like, hey, we can't quite do that, but we can change this and do this angle differently or come in slow or whatever it is. So it's that, again, that collaboration, that trust between yourself and the production team to accomplish the mission, right? I want to say yes. I want to provide you everything you're paying me for, but we're going to do it safely. In the film set, it's like, oh, didn't get that right, back to one.
Right.
Try it again.
Yeah.
All we're doing is spending more money.
Yeah. It's a bit different. And like you said, with the sets are very hierarchical. That word. Well,
I think we're close.
Hierarchical. I'm not going to be able to say it. Everyone knows what I mean. The hierarchy is there. It's well established on sets. And of course, depending on who you work with, there is, obviously some people that are more willing to hear advice from everybody along that chain, and some people are more opposed to that. What has your experience been like as a drone team on set? I've worked, a handful of sets. I don't think I've ever really worked a set with a drone team. What is the place of a drone team on a set, and what is that conversation like when you have to go to a director and say, hey, we can't do this for X, Y, and Z reason, and what is some of the pushback you might find, and how do you deal with those situations as they come up?
The difference and this is true in both film set and the live television stuff we're doing with WWE. I think the difference is if we're saying no, 99.999 repeating percent of the time, it's safety. And I haven't had a personal experience where, like, there's always been pushback, like, oh, why can't we do that? And it's like, okay, well, let me expand on my reasoning of why we can't do that. But at least the producers and directors that I've had the experience of working with, and we've had to say no, it's because we've been like, well, safety. And they're like, oh, and you can see the disappointment, but it's like, there's been too many incidences over the past 20 plus years now where it's like it's like the same thing with pyro, right?
Yeah.
If the pyrotech says, no, we can't do that, it's not safe, what producer in their right mind is going to be like, no, we're going to do it? The pyro guy's just not going to risk his license, you know what I mean? His insurance, all that stuff. We're not saying no for creative reasons. Again, 99.9% of the time. There have been some shots where I didn't understand. I'm like, you want us to do what? You sure?
Yeah.
Right? You in the thing, and then we come over and that's what you want. Okay.
Yeah.
Who am I? I'm not the creative. I'm the operator, right? If that's the shot you want, I'll shoot it. I don't have to understand it to execute, right? And ultimately that shot gets cut, right? Because, I mean, we all saw, like, what is this idea? I don't get it. But we're not saying no because we think the creative's stupid, right? That's never the question. It's not our job to question the creative. We'll say, hey, maybe we'll try something different. I mean, we'll shoot it however you want it. But if we're saying no, it's safety. And I can't think of a single instance where I've felt like disrespected or anything because or met such pushback that it was like jeopardizing the job. Like there's always that resistance because producers, directors want what they want. But once that safety card gets pulled, it's really hard for people to argue.
Right. Yeah, we've definitely seen some things, especially recently. There's some been highly publicized, incidents on sets that, are all terrible and could be, everyone wishes they could all be avoided. But having those stories now certainly makes people more aware of those things. I'll tie it back one more time quickly to the service. There's, people that have former service members in their life, know them personally, know that there are some things that you like kind of like how you mentioned, you are trained to be a certain kind of way and a mindset is instilled in you at that time that's kind of hard to untrain. What are some of those things from the service that still stick with you and that you're able to apply to your work going forward that you think maybe other people could benefit from? Or inversely, what are some things that, stuck with you that you still are working through to this day, trying to figure out how they, what place they have in your life and how they grow with you professionally?
The small team leadership skills that the military taught me are one of I'm running a team of 3 to 5 other guys. An Army fire team is 4 to 6 guys. I got that all day, right? And I don't want to say I run a team like a military unit, certainly not disciplinarily, but like I'm running a fire team. It's the same thing I did 20 years ago. The discipline, right? It's not hard if you're not 10 minutes late, or if you're not 10 minutes early or late, right? So call time's 10:15. Well, be there at 10:05. You really need an extra 10 minutes of sleep? It just goes back to me saying it's the military without guns. So I think really what part of what draws me to the whole live television, and I say this kind of jokingly, but it's like it's a way for me to deal with that trauma again every time I go to work. In a healthy way, I think, though, right? Because it's like I'm an adrenaline junkie. Am I going to get a adrenaline or a dopamine dump sitting in an office for 9 to 5? Like live TV, get it right or pay the price, right? Film sets, like, okay, now we're in overtime, and because you didn't get that drone shot right, we're spending, $2,300 an hour to keep everybody here on set. Like, get it right, get it right, get it right. I don't think that I would be able to operate this business as I am had I not had the experiences I had in the military. They were very, they were very formative. I learned much of the personnel management stuff and running a small team, much if not all, from my time in the military. And then the business side, I just kind of figured it out kind of thing. It was like, well, you need to make more money than you're spending.
Yeah.
Right. It's not that hard, right? You're providing a service, just make more money than you're spending. Same kind of thing. Back to the active duty stuff. You meet all kinds of people that come from all walks of life. You have to be able to work with anybody. Doesn't matter race, color, creed, sense of humor, person. It doesn't matter. None of that stuff matters because you guys allegedly are all trying to get to the same mission. So you also encounter all types of people from all walks of life with all kinds of personalities and all kinds of attitudes and willingness to be collaborative or not on a film set or on a television production. And what I've seen outside of my team is a lot of young people seem to struggle with interfacing with that broad of a spectrum of people and being able to have a conversation with hey, we need to, and it's tough. It's tough to watch and observe, and it's like, why are they here? You know, well, they have to learn somewhere, right? I've been very selective about my team composition. I would take someone whose personality is going to jive with the team and teach them the skills that they need. I'll take someone green who has no experience in television at all, but has a great attitude, who I know's personality will fit with the team and has a willingness to learn, over someone with 20 years of experience. They're already most of the way there with their attitude, right, and their personality. I'll give you the skills you need to be successful on this team. At the end of the day, being able to pick the right people, you know, if you're putting together a team, nowadays nobody shows up as a drone guy, right? It's a drone and a spotter, or a drone and a spotter and a drone tech. So you're always, in the drone world, you're always on a team, you know, with maybe the random like job you do for a buddy,
Right.
something like that.
Yeah.
But professionally, it's a team. It's a drone team.
I love that though. And too, any minimal amounts of wisdom I have to bestow upon anybody, that's one of the first things I always tell them is like, when you're in an industry where people have the opportunity to decide who they work with, it is so important. You don't have to be the greatest person on set. You just have to be, a good hang. Like the amount of work and the relationships you can make just from being a good person is unmatched, especially in an industry where people are just going to decide to work with the people that they like more than other people. And it's one of the only benefits to that. Like you're going to be on sets for long hours. You're going to be stuck with these people. You could be on a mountaintop for 6 weeks shooting something. Are you going to bring the guy that's everyone hates being around, but is, this much better at their job? Or, of course, you're going to pick the one everyone likes, who's going to get the job done as well. So
be personable and do the work. I mean, that's
right. It seems to be, for some reason, it's difficult for we won't say everybody, but for specific people. It's really great though. And so your drone career now is, really transcendent. It's not like you're just doing live stuff. You're also doing recorded stuff. What is the sweet spot for you? What is the jobs that you're really looking for in the drone space right now? Like, what is your dream job as a drone operator?
Spatchcock funk till I die. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah.
I have to say that, he's sitting right there.
Yeah.
No, I all joking aside, I do love working with those guys. It's always a great experience. They've done an amazing job putting together a good team too. Maybe not Steve Long, but we can talk about that off camera.
Yeah.
My dream, I mean, I'm kind of doing it, man. Like, sure, I'd love to play on the Olympics. I'd love to play on an X Games, but those are like kind of one-off events, which are great. And I'm sure they'd be lucrative. There's no off season with WWE. It's 52 weeks a year, with the exception of when the tour leaves the country, and even on some of those we're going. But the WrestleMania, which is effectively the Super Bowl of WWE, happens on a Saturday and Sunday in April. That's the end of the season. Monday afternoon starts the new season with Monday Night Raw. It's 52 weeks a year, man. I have this is the dream job. I can't ask for, unless it's more work with WWE, right? Because we're only on Monday Night Raw right now. So I keep kind of asking about SmackDown, and I get various answers that I can't really elaborate on because of the NDA, but but it's 52 weeks a year. It's every Sunday, or Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, travel, work, travel. And then the bigger shows usually happen on like a Friday or a Saturday. So maybe those are Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. It's enough for me, man. I don't, I'm not trying to be, if I get the opportunity to scale, of course, some huge Hollywood project, or even, a middle of the road Hollywood project needs a drone team, of course. But I'm certainly not out there like, this isn't good enough, I need the Olympics, or this isn't good enough, I'm going to move to LA and be on every film set on the face of the planet. I honestly, I enjoy film set work, but it's like, I am the most fulfilled doing what I'm doing in live television. It's fast paced. There's no, like, we have to get this done right now. There's no, well, we'll just add a day. No, I don't want, I've been on this show for 12 weeks. I don't want another day, right?
Yeah.
I'm very fulfilled doing what I'm doing right now. And I'll take the opportunities to scale, but I'm already kind of at the max cap for like travel and stuff. It's like I'm already gone enough. I don't need another excuse to leave Syracuse for a gig. So I'm okay. I'm kind of happy with what I have right now.
Love that. Yeah. And I think that's something too I've talked to a lot of guests about, and I've had some people at various stages in their career. So some people are still looking to massively scale, and some people are at the point where they're deciding, is this the point where I just love what I do and just coast from here? And, it's a very real discussion that I'm sure basically for as long as you have this career, I'm sure you'll be asking yourself almost daily, do we want to bring this to another level? Do we want to hold it where it is? How do you balance those thoughts of, I think everyone gets caught in the rat race of, well, the next step is obviously you've got to do better this year than you did last year. You got to do better this week than you did last week. And while some of those things are a good mindset to have, you can also lead into this, self-destructive path also of never being fulfilled, never being excited about what you have currently going on. Do you ever have those kind of struggles behind the scenes? Have you in the past had those struggles, and how have you dealt with them?
Yeah, I mean, when I was working 2 or 3 times a month as an A2 and doing drone work and location audio recorder stuff kind of in between those jobs, and we were more than happy and comfortable financially, but I was just like, I had to go plug mics in again. Like, it sounds ungrateful. It's not, but it's like, this is my 900th basketball game. Like, oh, what is this? There's no creativity to it, right? We're losing that aspect of like, it's all rote. It's all at that point muscle memory. Like, oh no, something's broken. I don't even have to fix it. I just have to replace the mic. You know what I mean?
Right.
There's no critical thinking. There's no problem solving. It's just this rinse and repeat. And for some people that might be great. It just wasn't fulfilling for me. So I knew it was live TV. I didn't necessarily, we'd been working on a weekly thing with WWE for a couple of years. Like, hey, when are we gonna do things inside arena? Because we had been doing the larger events, but exterior only. So we'd go to WrestleMania and have the drone out for live exteriors for like the pyro or coming back from a break or whatever. And those were great. I think the next steps are like, if I scale larger than this, I'm spinning off another team who is which effectively they have to be autonomous, right? So my involvement stops at the coordination with the venues. And for me personally, that is a huge thing to let go of, because when I'm present, I can be mitigating the risk, right? I can be made aware of and take steps to mitigate any potential risks in real time. If I'm spinning off an autonomous team, whoever's leading that team, like, we have to be telepathically connected, right? He or she has to have that same mindset of risk-based decision-making. Mm-hmm. And that's my struggle. There's, 7 to 50,000 people in this arena or this stadium, and individuals in that ring that are worth tens to hundreds of millions of dollars to our client. There's a certain attitude that I've found that reoccurs with a lot of drone pilots, where the shot is the most important thing. And of course it is a very important aspect, but at what risk, right? So if we're not mitigating that risk, that's the struggle for me to release and kind of would be the next obstacle to scale. WWE called me tomorrow and said, hey, SmackDown, we're a go. So now it's Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. I'm sort of prepared to send that team because I'm not traveling 6 days a week. Like, I completely intend to stay a very happily married person for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
And 6 days a week on the road is not going to cut it. But again, finding someone who you can effectively trust to be the face of your business and make the same types of decisions that you would when you're talking about that kind of liability.
Right.
It's $10 million of insurance aside, we don't ever want to have to get to the point to use that, right? That's, for me, that's the struggle with the scaling. I don't think you should scale for the sake of scaling, right? I don't think you just need to get bigger for the sake of getting bigger. If you have the capacity to do so, and the necessity to do so, I think those are the deciding factors. I would love to pay for more people's bills,
Right.
and have that, the additional residual off that other team, right? The margin off that team. Altruistically, I'd much rather 3 of my friends, hey, I got a pilot, I got a lead, just go spot him.
Right.
Here's some money. Like, that's why I want to scale, because I know people that are in this space that, through circumstances outside of their control, find themselves in positions where they have skills, they have the desire to work, they have the knowledge. So if I can send 3 more people from Syracuse out on the national stage, regardless of whether or not your name ever goes up in lights, or there's no credits in WWE, right? You're working, and you're working just about every week.
Which is super rare in the entertainment business. Yeah. I think people don't understand too, of like, are Hollywood movies great and cool and you get to really, flex some creative muscles? That's awesome. Absolutely. But you're unemployed every 6 weeks.
For a month, right?
Right.
Yeah, and you get to do it for 30 days.
Right. And it's like, people don't realize how much of this, for a lot of people, you could have just worked on, Sinners won just about every Oscars last year. And of course, there are plenty of people, when you're talking that level of sets, that are fully established, and they're people are beating down their door to do projects. But there are plenty of people on that set also that got off that job, and they're like, all right, I have no idea the next time I'm going to make $1. So I fully agree. It's I think people need to also think more about scaling, and it's great. It's a great mindset to have, but I just think social media has pushed us to a point where people are scaling, growing, or keeping that mindset simply because they feel like they have to, as opposed to, this is what's going to be best for me. This is what's going to be best for my family, for my life.
Yeah, it's like the professional business version of keeping up with the Joneses. This other company is doing all this stuff and getting bigger and buying this real estate and has this studio, and I need to do that, and that's how I'll be successful. Well, maybe not. Right. That's a huge capital expenditure for an unproven thing for your specific it's capacity and necessity, I think.
Right. Yeah, and that's been a really great experience for myself doing this podcast, as I've been able to sit down with people on both ends of that spectrum. Like, the episode that's coming out before this one is with this guy named Matthew Gold, who's a concert and tour photographer and videographer. So he's in the music industry. He's on tour all the time. He's also 28 years old, single with no kids. So he's obviously going to have very different goals than someone like yourself who has a family and kids at home, or, some of the business owners I've spoken to that have a family and kids at home. And not only do you have those other things to think about, but some of these people also just have decided that I'm fulfilled. I love where I'm at. I'm stable. And this is a wonderful thing. So I think it's really great to explore the balance of those two things. I really appreciate you taking all the time today. I just have one last question for you. So the show is called Someday Soon. For you, what falls into that someday soon category, and how is that thing going to propel you for your future? Which I think is going to be a super interesting question for yourself, because, before, I kind of heard you mentioning before this that you're turning down jobs. You have a great gig with the WWE that you love doing. You kind of just mentioned that maybe just, doing what I do right now is like, this is the dream for me. So what is that next thing, or maintaining of that next thing?
No, I already have an answer lined up for this. It's something I've been thinking about for a long time. I don't want to be at every show. I don't need to be the guy, right? I don't need to be the guy on the sticks flying. I have more than enough high-skilled and capable pilots. Someday soon, I would like to pick the shows that I want to go to because they're in a cool location, somebody needs a week off, whatever the case is. Handle all the venue coordination stuff, like all of the approvals, all of the airspace, all of the back-end support work. I'll sit in front of my laptop and do that for 30 hours a week and let the team run itself on site. That would be pretty ideal. And be working on the business, not in the business.
Right. That's really, that's I know I said that was the last question, but let me just ask you a little bit about that, because that's incredible. Especially, as I just mentioned, Matthew, the guy on before you here, was also talking about he's doing a lot of this work now. And one of the things he's doing is setting up sort of a digital agency in Nashville so that he can only physically tour so much. So he's trying to, kind of build out this network where he has people under him that he's able to say, I'm confident that this is someone for you, and kind of build out. So I'm super interested in this idea of something that can sustain itself after, because especially in creative, ventures, there's only so much. There's only so many hours you can do. And I think the biggest thing that keeps people in the industry for a long time, whatever their industry is finding a way to not directly tie your income to how many hours you can work. And that's a super critical thing. So what is the goal with that, and how do you see that playing out over the next couple of years?
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to 6 months ago I said in 6 months, that'd be reality, and that's just not the reality. If I'm being realistic, I could do it today, right? I could. This is a me problem, not a them problem, right? This is a me problem. This is my inability to release it, right? And that's totally on me, and I'm fully aware of this. And it's just something that I'm going to have to figure out how to, at some point, just kind of let it go and trust the team and the systems that I built and put in place, and continue to ensure that it runs smoothly. I think there's an aspect of it where I have to maintain some level of face time with the production, the higher level production staff, because I don't want where's Todd? Why isn't Todd here? Right. Well, because it's his business that you're hiring, not him. And nothing against them, right? I wouldn't, if I was a TV director on a show of that level, I wouldn't want to be like, who are these guys? Like, I would want to see the same faces every week, right? To know that I have this relationship with Ryan who flies FPV drones, and I know that I can say, Ryan, I need you to do this, and you know what I mean? You don't have to like figure out who you're working with this week. So I think that team consistency, and then still making sure there's, appropriate FaceTime and correspondence with the production staff. But it's a me problem, man. It's hard for me to let go of that. Really, it all comes back to the liability issue. It's hard for me to let go of the responsibility of the liability, right? I'll get there someday soon.
Oh, yeah. Love that. Well, Todd, thank you so much for sitting down and sharing all this stuff. I feel like there's a lot of really great, tidbits in there of advice and life experience that I really appreciate you sharing with everyone. So guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Check out this guy's stuff. If you watch WWE, the next time you see any of the drone shots, this is your man right here. So guys, thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll catch you next time.